Afternoon. I am delighted that our friends from Utah are here already. Natalie, you and your buddies are the first people signed in. Oh, someone else is signing in. Here come the troops. Oh, they're both Natalie Gregory. That's fantastic. And let's see if I can make this. I'll show my screen. Present. There we go. All right. I am very, very grateful to Sharon Hoff, our questioner and commentator, who yesterday was also your discussionista. Isn't she fabulous? I watched the video of your conversation from yesterday, and I love all the stuff that you guys brought up. Sharon, I am so grateful for your help. I went to that conference and I learned many, many more good ideas and thoughts for how to help different kinds of non-traditional students. It was a lot of fun, and I'll be telling you all about it in the staff room. Of course we have a staff room. Doesn't Hogwarts have a staff room? I'm Sparrow Alden, your fellow reader and discussionista for A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. Chapter 5, The Tesseract. Now, in your program packets, you will see that I was planning today would be chapters 5 and 6, but there is so much in this chapter that I don't think I can squish chapter 6 in. Okay, so here we go. Let's click and see if I get a new slide. I loved someone's comment that the description of the beautiful planet Uriel was a lot like the beautiful landscape of Bhutan. It's a country in Asia. Look at those mountains. They're steep, but they're totally covered in lush forest. And look at how deep green the greens are and how far those mountains go on and the beautiful buildings and the brightly colored flags. I love that someone likened those two so that we could have a picture, a little bit of what Uriel would look like. Well done. And this is from the previous chapter. That dark thing we saw, she said, is that what my father's fighting? Now, Meg, before this point in the book, of course, she's been focusing on finding her father, but she just sort of thought about him being lost. I think that there's no reference to him fighting anything or combating anything or resisting anything. I think she's just got, oh dear, father is misplaced. We've got to go find him. Let's planet hop or something like that. So how does Meg know that? Oh, okay. I will let you, you know what? You guys start sending in answers. And I'm going to, my question box sort of went somewhere else. And I'm amused that it went away. I'm fascinated that it went away. Not showing anything? Hold on. All right. Did I show my main screen? There it is. There's my screen. Sorry. All right. Yeah, Mrs. Gregory is saying if there's supposed to be a slide up, we can't see it. Sorry, guys. Okay, now I'm showing my main screen. Let's see if I can do this presentation again and still see the question box. There we go. All right. Please let me know what you're thinking about Meg's way of knowing that. She jumped in the normal logical progression of things. You know, first I see this, then I ask questions about it, kind of poke at it, and I must logically connect my thoughts. She jumped her thoughts. Send me comments. And we had wonderful questions from Bella about why is the dark thing there? Why is it even in this story? Was it? And then what does it do in this story? Maybe it's a really upsetting thing and very different from what we expected as readers at this point in the book. Or maybe we did expect something like that. Or maybe the shock of such an unusual thing has to do with Meg's shock at this evil, bad thing that makes her jump to it's evil. We've got to protect against it. And her father's really her hero, isn't he? I'll bet my father is fighting this. Is that what my father is fighting? That jump in logic is a new thing for Meg. Go, Meg. I'd also love to hear about the darkness of the dark thing compared to the darkness of the storm and the darkness of the Tesseract. I remember the darkness of the Tesseract was described as, in normal dark, you can bang your shins. I certainly do. But there's a different quality to the dark thing. There's a scary different quality to the dark thing, right? Ooh, I know what I'm going to do. Sharon stepped out a moment ago, and I'm going to click something. There we go. Oh, please show the photo again. Thank you, says Sharon. Absolutely. Isn't that beautiful? And I think that the contrast from the beautiful world of Uriel jumping to the scary evil darkness of the dark thing makes Uriel more beautiful and the dark thing more dark, like ultra dark, blue dark, dark, not even absence of light, because Tesseract was absence of light. Light simply wasn't. The dark thing is darkness that isn't nothing. In the dark in a storm, there's wind, there's trees, there's your quilt, there's your kitten. In the darkness of a Tesseract, there's nothing. And then, beautiful comment from our friends in Utah. I'm sorry, Sharon, I am showing too many things here. The dark thing feels unhappy and scary and alive and evil. The Tesseract is just nothing. It's just loss of sensation. And then it comes back. So the dark in a storm has things in it, things you know. The dark of a Tesseract is just like zero. The dark of the dark thing is a taking away, a scary, a taking away your safety, taking away your happiness. All right. Alrighty. Sharon, I'm going to close the question box because if I'm looking at two things, no, I cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm closing the question box and I'm just looking at the box where you send me comments because then I'll be able to do this. Alrighty, Planet Uriel, beautiful shot of Bhutan. Meg jumping to the conclusion that her father was fighting the dark thing. It's sort of a negative darkness. You guys talked yesterday about character development. See, Meg has developed this new skill. I'm sure she's done it before in her life, but now we're really seeing it. Characters change based on their experiences. I love that you guys brought this up, that she has now had an experience of seeing the thing and worrying about her father. She put it together. I've heard that sometimes called intuition. Is there anyone who has a good definition of intuition or a guess of what a bad definition of intuition? Because I have a theory, but it's really, really, really complicated. And I want to start with someone who's got more common sense than I do. Intuition. I assume many of you have heard the word. It is like, as we've said before, knowing something without learning it, maybe not learning it formally. Nice. gut feeling. What a really good word. Instead of knowing something in your head, you know it in your gut. And that has got something to do with a sensation kind of knowing that we don't have a lot of words for. All very interesting. I'll tell you a little bit. Oh, intuition is the feeling you know something. Thank you, Natalie. Good words, even if you can't explain it or how you know it. Your ideas match up really well with mine. I think we've got the perceptive senses, seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, feeling, smelling, sorry. Don't forget the nose. And I think we have the ability to sense things very subtly without even thinking about them, and the ability to put together patterns and to solve these questions without thinking about it. There are some subtle, complex things in the world, like a tesseract, that we don't have words for. And so the way we're figuring them out aren't verbal. We can't say what we were thinking to reach the conclusion because there aren't words. It's just suddenly the answer, our brain that is not just the five senses, works on it, works on it, works on it, and boop, out pops the answer that our brain has come to. And some people's brains are really crisp and clean about that. Some people's brains are really imaginative and out there with that. And some people's brains are really imaginative and wonderful, both that it's a wonderful brain and they're full of wonder, and can get to conclusions in that manner that turn out to be right. Wow. I love thinking about thinking. Sorry. Okay, let me move on a little bit. You guys said Meg fights and resists things like ideas, like having to conform, like teachers. Does that quality in the world make her path through the world tougher? Good question. Someone put a little star in your head next to that question, because I think that's got more than a yes or no answer. I love these things. After hearing the beautiful poem translation of what the more than centaurs are saying or singing, Meg didn't need the reassurance touch of handholding, but as a partner in the touch with Calvin's hand. Remember, he just did this so the joy could flow between them. That I'm going to take as a sign of character development. Meg has had a new experience, and she has a new way of sharing and communicating through touch. I think touch is very important to her. You guys talked about how some people don't like touch. Some people don't like strong smells. A lot of us have variations on our perceptive senses. Isn't it cool to know that my way of seeing the world, of knowing the world, and your way of knowing the world are just enough different that we'll have stuff to talk about? Oh, could it be this? Could it be that? And as long as we're having a respectful conversation within our agreement and accepting each other's wonder, that is a beautiful, beautiful way to be in the world. Sharon sent me a great note. She's talking about communal experience. Interesting. So I see several of that. There's the Calvin and Meg having experience at the same time by this very, very light bare touch. They've got a communal experience. And what I was saying about intuition, when you can kind of jump to conclusions, maybe your whole community has told stories for years about, well, this is how the tide works. It comes in at this hour and it comes in half an hour, a full hour later the next day. But in the meantime, and everyone knows it. And everyone has observed that it follows the moon. So someone didn't sit down all by themselves in, let's see, what year was I born? I was born in 1964. So I didn't sit down the first time I saw the sea and figure out what the tide is. My community's experience of the tide filtered through in stories and, oh, you can't go out there yet because it's low tide and the mud will suck at your feet, or this is where the monsters are, whatever. I like that. And Sharon, if I'm missing what you mean, some of your meaning about communal experience, let me go because I wanna know more. All right. Moving on a little bit. Oh, you guys also said how different chapter 4 would be if Charles Wallace were telling the story. I loved your observations. You were brilliant. There is a name that is called a thought experiment. That's a what if, and you can hold the whole thing in your head. Remember how Calvin was asking Meg who wrote Boswell's Life of Johnson and um, tell me the principal exports of Nicaragua. I know that wasn't it, but he was poking at what is Meg's personality, what is her learning style. And that's an experiment that he did with Meg right there. Wondering what if this one thing changed in a story is called a thought experiment. Thank you for being scientists. And some people do that really thoroughly and they write up the new story. It might be a one pager, it might be a short story, but they're being an author and bringing that new what if to the world. The word for that is fan fiction. And that might be something that you try in the future, writing fan fiction in a world of a story you already know with what if one thing changed. I've got to say, out there in the world, there's some good fan fiction. There's some awful and tacky and bizarre fan fiction. Here's what I think is the best way to write fan fiction. Like for this story, for example, if Mrs. L'Engle read your story and said that you're really respecting the story, then I think that is a good thought experiment. You have exercised your brain, you've taken a new perspective, you've applied words to it, and I think it's a really fun thing to do. Okay. Oh, by the way, with Mrs. Witch with the pointy hat looking like a witch, which is spelled differently from witch, when I watched the video of you guys talking about that and having a little joke over it, I finally figured out Mrs. Who who is the one with the glasses, and her name sounds like she's the critter with the giant eyes that can see really well in the darkness. Who. Okay, so yeah, I've been reading this book for over 40 years and I didn't get that before now, so I'm a little slow when it comes to humor. I appreciate your indulgences. Sharon is laughing as well. All right. But with the two pictures side by side, I finally got it. It was great. All right, ladies and gentlemen, our threads, we've got a lot of threads now. We've got more threads than I usually even use in my college classes. So, there's science, observing, inferring, wondering, and doing experiments. There's knowing by feeling or intuition. We've been thinking about emotions and when are they near a happy medium and what does that look like and when are they not a happy medium. We also talked about conforming behavior. And you notice the ladies, Mrs. What's It, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Which, they don't have spouses in their haunted house. They just call themselves Mrs. to conform to the convention of the time that it was written. Most women were married. If a woman wasn't married, that was weird. Interesting. And mother wants to conform to the convention of not showing her kids extreme emotions. Interesting. Anyway, so conformity. And you guys hit on an excellent thing yesterday. When we are reading, when we are literature scholars, there's a it's not a question about the story, it's a question about us reading the story. What does the presence of this feature, this character, this action, this event do to the story? Does it move the plot forward? Does it add an intriguing twist? And then how does that thing affect me? And that all came from Bella's questions about why is it there? Well, of course, you're going to be the ones to answer this because I don't know how it being there affected you. Feel free to send in notes if you want to say that it seems scary to you, it makes you curious, however it affects you. Okay, here we go. And plot-wise, obviously, now we know that's the thing Father is fighting, which helps to solve the mystery of why he isn't at home eating cereal. Okay. Alrighty, time for quotation. Sorry, I've been blathering on quite a bit. That's exciting. Meg began to cry, to sob aloud. Through her tears, she could see Charles Wallace standing there, very small, very white. Calvin put his arms around her, but she shuddered and broke away, sobbing wildly. Then she was enfolded in the great wings of Mrs. Whatsit, and she felt comfort and strength pouring through her. Mrs. Whatsit was not speaking aloud, and yet, through the winds, Meg understood words. Through the wings. Sorry, 2 typos in a row. My child, do not despair. Do you think we would have brought you here if there were no hope? We are asking you to do a difficult thing, but we are confident that you can do it. Your father needs help. He needs courage. And for his children, he may be able to do what he cannot do for himself. All right, I noted down what I wanted to mention. There's touch, which when Calvin hugged her, she broke away. It wasn't comforting. But then the bigger touch, the hug, the hold of Mrs. Whatsit, because she's a more than centaur. She is a being that makes Calvin want to fall to his knees. That touch, all embracing, gave her comfort and strength. Sharon is writing something that I am agreeing with 100% in my mind. This book means so much to me. Those images of joy and hope and comfort are really important. Okay, I'm tearing up, but that's okay because Sharon in Arizona says she's also tearing up, and the two of us like to cry when we're very emotionally moved. I am not, perhaps at the moment, a happy medium. I am a loving the book bigger than medium, extreme, maybe not an extreme. Anyway, I have a question. You guys send me what are the words that you think are really important in this passage. I think there's some really important words here. While you're typing in words, I'm going to point out this is the communication, like how the singing not centaurs words went into Charles Wallace without him having the same language, maybe. She can communicate without words, which is their normal way. And I noticed that the 3 ladies say, perhaps Father can do something for his children, what he cannot do for himself. Maybe his children are the things that makes him brave against impossible odds and very great evil. Do you think we would have brought you here if there were no hope? Yes. Yesterday we talked about how the wings are how the Mrs. W's probably communicate, that is there. And when you stir them in the wind, the communication goes on the air, and they're rainbow, which means they've got all kinds of energy and thought and experience and beauty. What a great thought, Ms. Gregory. You know, I have a friend around here named Natalie Golden, so I keep hesitating to call you Ms. Gregory because I'm afraid I'll call you Ms. Golden, who isn't you. I hope it's okay that I use your first name. If that's not okay, I will make a little sign that says I should say, not Golden, Gregory. Alrighty, hope. That's a word I love in here. We're asking you to do a difficult thing, but we're confident you can do it. Your father needs help and courage. Those three and hope are the big words that I get from here. All right, I'm going to jump. Oh, maybe I'm not going to jump. And then we have the description of the Tesseract. The song. Thank you, Natalie. It's okay to call you Mrs. Golden if I forget that you're Ms. Gregory. That is very kind of you, because sometimes I feel like an old lady myself forgetting things. The song mentions the wings. The song mentions beings of light. Yeah, absolutely. And strength and joy and glory and all of that. And here we go, the explanation of the Tesseract. In my copy of the book, there's the single line, which is one dimension. There's the square. You take the line and you pull it out into another dimension, and that makes a square. See, there's up and down, there's back and forth, two dimensions. And now we run into a little trouble with having a flat piece of paper, which is two dimensions, trying to talk about a three-dimensional image. But if I've got this square and I pull it into a whole nother dimension, I've got a cube. I'm thinking of a Rubik's Cube or a building block or a tile or one of those little blocks that babies have with letters on them that you can wave around and whack things with it. That's always fun. So cube. And now on our two-dimensional screen, we're going to try to represent a four-dimensional thing. So I found a picture of what people call a hypercube, which is a four-dimensional thing. And this is not what it really looks like because it's only being represented on two dimensions. But it's as though you had a cube and pulled it into a new dimension. I can't pull it into a new dimension because my body is here in three dimensions, up, down, back, forth, forward, back. And Meg says Einstein and time. Einstein said, yeah, we move through time, so it must be a place you can move, so it must be a dimension. Then, okay, and try to hold that, but for too long. It's like, and then it's right there because all you have to do is fold where it's going, what it's going to go through. And for a brief, illuminating second, Meg's face had the listening, probing expression that was so often seen on Charles's. I see, she cries. I got it. For just a moment, I got it. I can't possibly explain it now. But there, for a second, I saw it. She turned excitedly to Calvin. Did you get it? He nodded. Enough. I don't understand it the way Charles Wallace does, but enough to get the idea. And I'm getting some great comments. Jubilee is saying that that's cool, that picture of the hypercube and us explaining it together. Ms. Gregory is saying, wow, we thought the fourth dimension was undrawable. As long as you recognize that that picture of the hypercube is nothing like accurate, it's just a two-dimensional picture of a four-dimensional idea. Oh, all right. Can I tell a story? Once upon a time, I had a professor, and he thought like this. Like Charles Wallace thinks like this all the time. He wasn't a Charles Wallace, but he was pretty much a genius. And when he had to conceive of something in three dimensions, he literally used a Rubik's Cube. And he would move it in this dimension that way and that way. And when he had to visualize something in 4 dimensions, he was the kind of guy who did that a lot. He would stand at the top of the stairs and kind of jump down the stairs, turning the blocks at the same time. So the 3 dimensions were moving and the 4th dimension was moving. Yes, it is true. He broke his ankle at one point, and then he stopped doing that because his spouse asked him to. It was pretty funny. You guys did have moments like that when you were discussing Tesseract and 4th dimension. I love it. Okay, Ms. Golden or Gregory, thank you so much for leading your team to think about this. Have you understood something this way? Yes, sometimes we do. And I sometimes understand things in that way. Especially, I have a new teacher now. It is my older child, Dark, who is into computer science in the deepest, most convoluted, amazing way. And they like to debrief with me when I pick them up to come home for the weekend sometimes. And I can get it while Dark is talking, but don't ask me to explain once he's stopped talking. It's just not going to happen. All right. Our friends in the story are preparing for their next Tesseract. Could we hold hands? Meg asked. Calvin took her hand and held it tightly in his. I wanted to point this out, of course, because it's more hand holding. You can try, Mrs. Watson said, though I'm not sure how it will work. You see, though we travel together, we travel alone. Wow. Think about what she could be saying with that phrase. Notice I emboldened it. Though we travel together, we travel alone. And I think it relates. Did we notice? Oh, yes. Good point. When we got to the Meg is so despairing and Calvin tries to hug her, no comfort at all because she is so despairing. She's got such an agony. I think she's so far from a happy medium that a regular mortal touch is not enough to bring her in to a place of safety. We did mention it, and it's a lot to think about. Now she's back to wanting Calvin's touch. Though we travel together, we travel alone. And can you relate that line to character development? I think it's important. Meg and Charles Wallace and Calvin are traveling together. They each bring different parts of the conversation. They each notice something different and share it so that everyone has more information. And even from a reader perspective, if they can talk to each other, then we have some idea what's going on. We travel together. So the group and the group bonding are important. But this is what it says also. We travel alone. When it comes right down to it, what you do is up to you. And then my head goes splody because that is so different from I'm just going to conform with what's expected. Oh, I'm beginning to have an idea of what Mrs. Whatsit might think about conformity. Absolutely fascinating stuff. Now they're tessering. If Calvin was still holding her hand, she could not feel it. But this time she was prepared for the sudden and complete dissolution of her body. When she felt the tingling come back to her fingertips, she knew this journey was almost over, and she could feel again the pressure of Calvin's hand about hers. Sorry about the typo error there. So she's already tessered once. She's got some confidence. She's got some experience. And so she changes her reaction to the Tesseract. I kind of wish that the 3 Mrs. W's had given them some warning before the first tesser, but it's not how the story goes. Just when I am an old being of mysterious interstellar origin, and I'm taking some young teenagers tessering, I'll remember to be a little more polite. I hope. I hope I remember that far back. They land in that two-dimensional world. And of course, your heart can't beat in a two-dimensional world, and the air can't go in and out because that's different from up and down. We also need to beat and to in and out. I just wanted to say there is a book called Flatland about a two-dimensional world. So this is an idea that some other authors have been thinking about for a long time. And by the time you're 12-ish, 12 or 13-ish, you're probably ready for Flatland. There's a certain amount of math in it, but not a lot. It's very fun with cool illustrations. And from Flatland, the narrator is looking into Line Land. So it's a one-dimensional world. And he's in a two-dimensional. It's very interesting. Okay. Now, don't worry, my pet. Meg has just said, oh no, my family's going to miss me. Don't worry, my pet, Mrs. Whatsit said cheerfully. We took care of that before we left. Your mother has had enough to worry her with you and Charles to cope with, and not knowing about your father without adding to her anxieties. We took a time wrinkle as well as a space wrinkle. It's very easy to do if you just know how. What do you mean? Meg asked plaintively. Please, Mrs. Whatsit, it's all so confusing. Just relax and don't worry over things that needn't trouble you, Mrs. Whatsit said. We made a nice, tidy little time tesser, and unless something goes terribly wrong, we'll have you back about 5 minutes before you left. So there'll be time to spare, and nobody will ever need to know that you were gone at all. Though, of course, you'll be telling your mother, dear lamb, that she is. And if something does go terribly wrong, it won't matter whether we ever get back at all. How comforting, right? Bella, yes, really good point. They couldn't breathe. That's why Charles was so angry and stamping his foot, and Meg was really disoriented by that part of their tester jump. Alrighty. So we learned that they can tesser through time, being a dimension. What else do we learn? It's very easy to do if you just know how. I don't know how yet, but sometimes I stand in my meadow and practice. I learned that Meg's sounding pretty plaintive. Her emotions are expanding again to not being a happy medium. It's also confusing. Mrs. Watson says something a little weird. Just relax and don't worry over things that needn't trouble you. Did anyone else have a response to that? Meg is trying to know in the scientific way. She's asking questions. She's observing what happened. She's hearing about the time tester. She wants to poke at it and find out how it works. Oh my word. Ms. Gregory, you have found it. Our discussion about facets, a really good word, F-A-C-E-T, S for the plural, made the group in Utah realize that gem facets are triangular, that or several triangles in together to making a like a snowflake. That Calvin, Meg, and Charles Wallace, the three characters, create a triangle as well, a very strong structure. If I have a footstool with 2 legs, I am going over. If I have a footstool with 4 legs, I've got to be on a very even surface with the legs exactly the same length to be stable. But if you've got 3 legs, each one can adapt to a change in the floor, and it's a really strong structure. It is a Charles Wallace word of the day. Thank you for having facet as your Charles Wallace word of the day. Well done, guys. Alrighty. I am just totally amused by Mrs. Whatsit. If something goes terribly wrong, it won't matter whether we ever get back. Ooh, don't frighten them, Mrs. Witch's voice came. Are you losing faith? Telling a distraught person to just relax has never, in the history of the world, made them relax. Thank you, Sharon. Oh, just relax. You don't need to understand that. It's supposed to calm me down. You're taking away my franchise, my right to know what's going on. Maybe not a right. My desire to know what's going on. If I'm here in this situation, I might even have a right to know what's going on or an expectation of it. Saying, we won't meet your expectations. It doesn't, just let it go. Just relax. Huh. Thank you for pointing that out, Sharon. It really doesn't work. Oh, don't worry about me. Yeah, no, I'm going to worry about you. Here we go. Alrighty. I brought up this slide because it uses the word faith. Are you losing faith? Faith in what's going to happen in the rest of the story, in what our mission is that we've set out to do. And I think that is another way of knowing, and it's got to do with intuition, and it's got to do with patterns and past patterns and predicting. But I know it's more complicated than that. It's a very short word, and so it means a lot. Interesting stuff. Don't be afraid, Mrs. Watson said. It's easier for the happy medium to work within. Now they're approaching the happy medium's cave, right? Oh, you'll like her, children. She is very jolly. If ever I saw her looking unhappy, I would be very depressed myself. As long as she can laugh, I'm sure everything is going to come out right in the end. So they've set up, there's a character named the happy medium. Happy, I think, is used as like cheerful. And medium has another meaning other than a moderate amount. There's going to be more playing on words like Mrs. Who sees like an owl, Mrs. Witch wears the pointy hat. Another play on words. Medium can mean the middle amount. It's not extremely high, it's not extremely low. And it also can be the person who is between two other beings who need to communicate. Like a little bit, remember when Charles Wallace was translating the joyful song for Meg? That's kind of what it means to be a medium and bringing it. There are lots and lots of stories about what a medium could be. You may have heard the word intermediary. Inter means between, and mediary means being in the medium place. Oh, I have got to tell you guys that little dog Max is coming to visit. Do you want to say hi to the kids? This is little dog Max. Hi. Hi. Sweetheart, I know there's something out there to woof about. Okay, but you're safe. Oh, you like this story too. Okay. Max, good boy. Off, please. Off, please. He just came to me because he's feeling a little anxious, which is why I use a nice calm voice. Max, off, please. Good boy. So that was good dog, Max. Oh, Bella observes the happy medium was very tired. Did we expect her to be very anything? I expect her to be moderately sleepy, gently awake when she's awake, maybe a little concerned but never worried, maybe a little bit glad but never crazy ecstatic. I expect someone called the happy medium to be like people keep coaching Meg to be. That was Max woofing again. Apparently there is a leaf out there, or possibly a dragonfly. You protecting us from dragonflies? All right. I'm going to jiggle my laptop a little bit because I need to shift my legs. It's literally on my lap. There we go. Okay. So Bella's saying she was very tired, and it looks like that surprised Bella a little bit. Oh, before we get in there, Mrs. Whatsit confides, it was really a very great honor for me to be chosen for this mission. It's just because of my verbalizing and materializing so well, you know. But of course, we can't take any credit for our talents. It's how we use them that counts. And I make far too many mistakes. That's why Mrs. Who and I enjoyed seeing Mrs. Witch make a mistake when she tried to land you on a two-dimensional planet. It was that we were laughing at, not at you. Notice I purpled the part of there. Of course, we can't take any credit for our talents. Maybe the idea that you're kind of born with them, they come from your genetic makeup and the atmosphere that you're in when you grow up. It's how we use them that counts. It is how each individual makes the choice to use them. So we travel together, we each travel alone. Amazing stuff. Did Mrs. Whatsit ever say something like that before? We can't take any credit for our talents. It's how we use them that counts. I'm going to let you guys think about that. Oh, I'm even going to drink some water. I'm thinking back on Uriel. It's a word that Sharon brought up in conversation yesterday. Humility. She turns into this amazing, singing, magical, spiritually awe-inspiring creature. Calvin drops to his knees and she says, "Never to me, Calvin. Never to me. That's not who I am. Don't offer me reverence. It's my job to sing reverence." And then here she is saying, can't take credit for talents. It's how we use them that counts. And says, Mrs. Whatsit has humility, and I love seeing that repeated in a different way. "We wanted them to see their home planet," Mrs. Whatsit said. The medium lost the delighted smile she had worn until then. So she has a delighted smile. Now it's gone. "Oh, why must you make me look at unpleasant things when there are so many delightful ones to see?" Again, Mrs. Witch's voice reverberated through the cave. "There will no longer be so many pleasant things to look at if responsible people do not do something about the unpleasant ones." Medium sighed and held the ball high. She's not very happy right now, and she's pretty upset. She's not a medium amount of feeling. But she is about to do the medium task of using with her crystal ball, because that's her tool, of communicating to Meg Calvin and Charles Wallace an image. We want them to see their home planet, an image of Earth. Remember, she lands on Mars by mistake first, and it's not really by mistake. She was kind of just resisting going to the Earth that she didn't want to see. The bright planet moved out of their vision. For a moment, there was the darkness of space, then another planet. The outlines of this planet were not clean and clear. It seemed to be covered with a smoky haze. Through the haze, excuse me, Meg thought she could make out the familiar outlines of continents, like pictures in her social studies books. Is it because of our atmosphere that we can't see properly? She asked anxiously. No, Meg. You know that it is not the atmosphere, Mrs. Witch said. You must be brave. Are you feeling brave, little dog? Okay. So, remember we talked about what Father needed was courage and bravery. I'm not prepared to say they mean exactly the same thing and they're used in the same way, but they're certainly in the same concept. Meg, you must be brave. Your father needs courage. All right. Now we know, because we've taken this look at the shadow, the thing. Bella, I'm talking to you. Because they're approaching this thing, those characters have to develop and get stronger and have a very small dog visit them. Develop, get stronger so they can be brave, so they can bring courage. It's like a stimulus to them developing. In a way, there's a lot more to the big dark thing. Are you being adorable? Yeah, I think you are. Are you a worried little one? You a worried dog. Max's sister dog, Skippleta, is completely resting, sound asleep on the floor. Max, honey, off, please. Off, please. Ahem. Thank you. And Max, I'll let you have a drink out of my water cup. There you go. Okay, so Max thinks he's had a treat. He's having water out of my cup. It's the thing, Charles Wallace cried. It's the dark thing we saw from the mountain peak on Uriel when we were riding on Mrs. What's-its back. Did it just come? Meg asked in agony, unable to take her eyes from the sickness of the shadow which darkened the beauty of the earth. Did it just come while we've been gone? Mrs. Witch's voice seemed very tired. Tell her, she said to Mrs. Whatsit. Mrs. Whatsit sighed. Off, please. No, Meg, it hasn't just come. It has been there for a great many years. That is why your planet is such a troubled one. So there's something that Calvin was the first one to name as evil. There's something evil that has been shadowing Earth for a while. Wow. And the kids suddenly feel really hopeless and they're sad, and Meg is in agony, big emotions. Mrs. Witch's voice rang out. It is evil. It is the powers of darkness. Oh, what's going to happen? Meg's voice trembled. Oh, please, Mrs. Witch, tell us what's going to happen. We will continue to fight. My friends, I want you to hold that line, not in your memory. I want you to hold that line right in your heart. Oh, the dog sees that I'm crying. That's why he's worried about me. Max, good boy. Off, please. I want you to hold that line. We will continue to fight. And someday, if you're facing something really hard and really scary, it'll be right there. I hope giving you some courage. Oh my Lord, am I crying? Hold on a sec. I will use the very beautiful hem of my lovely orange sweater to wipe my eyes. There we go. That is a line that inspires me in a huge way. And it is so simple. We will continue to fight. Because clearly, if she could predict the outcome, well, we're going to go to the next planet and you're going to use a magnifying glass to shine sunlight on the dark thing so that it suddenly becomes bright. And then we're all going to go home and have a sandwich. If Mrs. Witch could predict exactly what was going to happen, then the characters would not have been the ones making the choices. What did we say a few slides ago? I'm gonna hop backwards on slides. It's how we use them that counts. Is there another one? Though we travel together, we travel alone. It is the individual making choices that makes the story, that makes the outcome. So all Mrs. Witch knows is what she has in her heart. We will continue to fight. And she knows that her partners, Mrs. Who and Mrs. Whatsit, are pledged their whole heart to do the same thing. Okay. Whew. Natalie, Charles Wallace got very passionate in this scene. I love that. That Charles Wallace kind of trundles along, kind of medium, and then his worry and his courage and all these big people thoughts. He's only 5. And it's usually Meg that does that. Very good point, friends in Utah. Even Charles Wallace is feeling the hugeness and passion and enormity of what's going on. I say even Charles Wallace because he's 5, but really, of course, Charles Wallace because he is this new kind of being. All right. Great. I've stopped crying. Thank you for being patient with me. How many do we got? Oh, I only have a few minutes. Who have our fighters been? Calvin asked. Sharon Hoff says, is the fight against evil where the happy medium, the feeling of happy mediumity, goes out the window? Is that an occasion, the fight against evil? You know, making a sandwich, I can be pretty happy medium. I don't want to be melodramatic when I'm making a sandwich. But when you're fighting against evil, I love a word that the Utah group used, passion. When you're fighting evil, then use your passion. Awesome words, guys. We are bringing this. We're only halfway through the book. Holy tomatoes. And I know you guys will be able to make a list together. Who have our fighters been? Who is someone you personally admire for the way they have stood up against evil? I'm going to cry again. Sorry. Oh, Euclid, I suppose. Meg was such an agony, again, agony, of impatience that her voice grated irritably. And Copernicus, but what about father? Please, what about father? We are going to your father, Mrs. Witch said. But where is he? Meg went over to Mrs. Witch and stamped as though she were as young as Charles Wallace. You know, as Charles Wallace was doing a Meg-like thing, now she's doing a Charles Wallace-like thing. Mrs. Whatsit answered in a voice that was low but quite firm. On a planet that has given in. So you must prepare to be very strong. Okay. I'm going to wrap it up right there. You see why I could only do one chapter today? Wow. Have we been good in community? Yes. Bella is naming a whole basket load of people who fought the evil of the dark thing. As they named in the book, Jesus, other people from that part of world history, the apostles, Buddha. Remember, Meg just named two really amazing mathematicians, Euclid and Copernicus. It might be a different way of combating evil, but bringing mathematics and light to knowledge. You guys work on your lists. Feel free to send them to camp@signumu.org if you would like me to know your lists of heroes you admire. Have we been good neighbors sharing this space? I would love, because it helps me know what people are thinking, to hear more words from you guys, unless you're also like weeping with the beauty of what's going on. We have got a weekend coming up, and I will miss you guys a lot. At the end of the weekend, we'll talk about chapters 6 and 7. Meanwhile, on behalf of my good friend Sharon Hoff and myself, thank you for coming to Time Camp. I hope you have a really great weekend. Alrighty, now if I do this, oh, that moves the slides. And then if I do this, it's goodbye. Take care, friends.